Currently, across the Army and the Marine Corps, anyone carrying a rifle or carbine is basically firing the 5.56 millimeter round, been around since Vietnam, or a medium machine gun with a 7.62 millimeter round, which has been around in some form or another since World War I. But the question is whether or not the 5.56 round was the right round to carry into combat. It's really been controversial and debated ever since the round came out and pretty much to this current day. It's a lightweight caliber round. It was made to reduce recoil, increase the number of rounds that Marines and soldiers could carry. It was developed actually as a varmint round to shoot certain types of animals by Remington, and then adapted into military use for those reasons I mentioned before: lower recoil, higher capacity magazines. Now, the current round coming into play, the 6.8 millimeter round, actually traces its roots way back into the early 20th century. Japanese troops carried a similar version called a 6.5 millimeter that was abandoned later on when they lost World War II pretty much. And then the 30 caliber rounds of 30-06, 308, which is a 7.62, carried forward in U.S. troops World War II, Korea, and into Vietnam. But along that way, even the British, when they were debating whether or not to adopt a common caliber across allied nations, wanted to go with a .280, which is basically 6.8 millimeter, all the way back in World War II. That was shot down, of course, no pun intended, by the U.S., who wanted to stick with their 30 caliber, and then shifted to the 5.56. Now, in the last decade plus, studies coming out of Afghanistan showing limited ranges, limited lethality, and concerns on troops at the front lines with the 5.56 shooting in certain scenarios, basically brought a revisit to the 6 millimeter or intermediate caliber range, which has resulted in the developments we're seeing now.
Major General Bob Scales, former commandant of the Army War College, but more to the point of this interview, I've spent the last 3 decades being an advocate for the close combat function among the ground services. Yeah, in Vietnam, I was a battery commander of the direct support battery during Hamburger Hill. And as a consequence, I got attacked 3 times and overrun once by the NVA. And I realized that while we may have been good at artillery fire, we weren't very good at self-defense. And that's what really led me down this path of wondering why the world's most technologically advanced military in the world was not very good at close combat or close defense, or all the things that I failed at as a junior officer. One of the things I've learned in reforming small arms is that it's really all about the bullet. Energy is equal to mass times velocity. And you can increase velocity up to a certain point. But at the end of the day, it's the mass of the bullet that counts. And the beauty of the intermediate round is that it allows a bullet to fly supersonic for much longer periods, say from 300 meters for the 5.56 to 600 meters for the 6.8 millimeter. And as long as the bullet is supersonic, it's stable and it's very accurate. And it has the killing power, the punch, to be able to punch through, say, the enemy's body armor or his light defenses.
So by adopting the 6.8 millimeter round, it's not as simple as just swapping that round into existing weapons. The Army's actually building a whole weapon around the 6.8 millimeter round, the next generation squad weapon.
There are several characteristics that this new weapon has to have that the M16 doesn't have. One, of course, is direct action, as opposed to the gas impingement action of the M16, which is inherently unreliable. The other is a suppressor. Think of an infantryman with the ability to have a stealth capability built into his rifle. That's what a suppressor allows. If the enemy can't hear you and you can hear him, that's a tremendous advantage in the close fight.
So the Army has really brought everything down to about 3 contenders for the new next generation squad weapon. And again, they're going to be developing an automatic rifle and a carbine variant, both in 6.8 millimeter. And that is Textron Systems, General Dynamics, and SIG Sauer. Now, SIG Sauer has provided the new handgun in recent years for all of the armed forces, new service sidearm. So they have a traditional kind of design. Textron has a kind of a sci-fi looking design with a whole new kind of case telescope ammunition and little polymer cases. And General Dynamics has a different form factor, somewhat similar to current weapons, but slightly different in terms of how it's going to cycle the round and get rounds down range. So those 3 contenders will be looked at in the next year to 2 years. They'll down select and continue testing, and that will be delivered to the field. What might seem like a small change of just a few millimeters is going to have sweeping changes across formations, tactics, and firepower, all within the next 2 years, and Military Times will be covering those developments closely.